Good morning, both of you. So today I'm joined by two lads that I've connected with on the podcast scene. We've been following each other for a while now on Instagram. And then the thing I love the most about this world is that you let those connections grow organically. And then you can see the people that are there to support each other. And the three of us have been supporting each other now for a while, which has been cool. And we thought, why not jump on a podcast and use it as a conversation to reflect on the stuff we've learned as podcast hosts, both as human beings, but also as podcasters and the pressures that go with that. So yeah, thank you first and foremost for joining me.
No worries,
I
mate.
will introduce them as Fish Head and Daymo, but I've had about 7 different variations of what I can call you both. So I think the best place to start is just for both of you individually, just to give a little bit of an overview of like your story, just so. And this is what I've started doing now with guests that I've got coming on, because I don't want my podcast to be like this massive hour-long story. I like the idea of, what's your story? Let's get that kind of done at the start, even if it only takes 5 minutes, because I love looking deeper into like what you've learned, who you are underneath, and like who you are today, because your story stays the same, but we evolve as people. And that's what I've realized is like where I am with how I want the podcast to be. So yeah, I don't mind who goes first, but I just think a bit of a snapshot of your life up until now, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. All right, sound.
Okay,
I'll go first. So yeah, I started off private school educated, dad in the RAF, lived a privileged upbringing, got into doing a bit of international sport. I was part of the British sailing team. Again, very bougie. Good fun though. Well supported by my parents and all that. Got ferried around the country, around the planet. Then sort of tried to step out on my own with that a little bit. Unfortunately, didn't make the cut for sort of Olympic grade, which is like sort of the only pathway that was available back then in professional sailing. Things are a bit different now. Don't know if any of your listeners follow it, but there's quite a lot of almost Formula One level technical world championship sailing going on that is televised nowadays. So there's a pathway for that. But yeah, basically I flopped out of that and flopped into, and I hate to say it because everybody says it, but those who can't teach, right? So I was left with, coaching as my pathway to make a bit of money. But what it also meant is that I could travel the world with that. So worked all over the planet, Singapore, Caribbean, Dubai, quite a lot of places in Europe. Got to see a lot of the world, didn't make a vast amount of money. Came back to the UK after doing, chasing the dream sort of into my 30s and realized like, oof, this isn't really going to get me a gaff. The bank manager doesn't like beach bums that are chasing, a couple of quid here and there and just enjoying themselves in the sunshine. So I had to tuck in, get a real job. I started working at a water sports centre here. Again, meeting loads of different people out of walks of life. It wasn't as much fun maybe as the traveling abroad, but you would get everything from people coming from the city who've had enough of banking. They're like, right, I'm throwing it all away. I want to be a yacht captain. I want to sail around the world. So I'd be like, bang on for that. I'd be like, mate, this is a great decision. We go and we take them 0 to hero, train them up, and then release them out onto the oceans of the planet, hoping they don't take anybody out. But did that for a while, and then got into my current job, which brought me back to Manchester, where I met my wife, and we're happily married and living the dream, mate. Not exactly packing away a massive amount of coinage, but we're happy, and it's about working to live, not living to work, isn't it? So that's kind of my motto moving forward these days, anyway.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, great summary, and it's clear you've been all over the place, seen loads of stuff, and I couldn't agree more. The whole work-life balance for me is something I've really got a grip of over recent years. Similar to yourself, I do a job that's high pressured, and you can easily get carried away with thinking like, I have to go to work because that's important. And with young kids, you also get sucked into thinking, I have to do as much as I possibly can to provide from them, when looking back, all they really need is like safety, security, enough to go away a bit here and there, but actually it's your time. So now I've got a proper grip on that. yeah, the work-life balance is so easy to get that wrong. Maybe
It's
that's
like
something
what
we can.
one of our guests said with your kids as well. Like, I'm not a parent, but I know
Yeah.
both of you guys are. He talked about the real presence that kids want is presence, and I don't luckily have to find that balance, but must be dead tricky for both you guys to get that right between spending the right amount of time with them present in the moment rather than getting obsessed with grafting as hard as you possibly can to prepare for their future. I guess that's a difficult balance for both of you guys.
It's brutal, mate, and especially
Okay.
again with certain occupations. I can remember a time when my phone would go off. Didn't matter what I was doing. I'm off. I'm going work.
Yeah.
It's because again, if you're on a team and you're skilled in certain things and there's stuff going on where you convince yourself it needs your certain skill set to go and rectify that problem. It's yeah, and that's not right or wrong because that is kind of what you sign up for in certain respects in certain roles. But for me, it was at the point where I can no longer function in that way, give that flexibility to that role. I knew it was time to step away, and that's what I did, which is ultimately led me to where I am now, being able to free up a whole load of time, headspace, capacity, address certain issues that were there mental health wise. And now moving forward, it's like doing something I actually really enjoy, really get purpose from, but still getting that work-life balance.
Yeah.
Just going on to something you said there about like you've got a certain skill set. You think, I mean, it is your duty or our duty sometimes to go and do things that normal people wouldn't do. But one person at work said to me one day something that resonated a long time out, and that was, "If you're not here, there will be a bum on that seat," and
Yeah.
that did change my outlook a little bit because you can, like you say, get carried away in the importance of the work that you do and the fact that it is a valuable and moral thing for us to go out there and do that work. But if you can't get there, they will fill that slot.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I think as well, being a parent, like Ollie, that before being a parent, Ollie, I would look at work a little bit differently. I do now. The adrenaline buzz of doing what we do and being around people. And I think being a parent, it really like solidifies your purpose for being here now. I want to be here for my son and I want to make sure I've got time for him. And I think the work we do is great. We get to help people just like you. But when I come home at the end of the day, the conversations I have with my son are just so much more valuable if, I'm spending time with him. And the minute a job starts taking away from them kind of scenarios in your life and being around people you love, I think you have to reevaluate. And it doesn't mean ending doing what you do, but sometimes things just need to change to adjust.
Yeah. Boundaries
Yeah,
boundaries
definitely.
and sticking to them. But yeah, mate, that's
Yeah.
gone kind of on its own direction, isn't it? But yeah, so what's your story, Damo?
All right. So, a little bit different to Fish Heads, mate. So my story starts in Salford. So I don't know if you're aware of a place called Salford. It's quite a large city just on the edge of Manchester. So born and bred in Salford at the old Hope Hospital in Salford. My father, my biological father, and the reason I say that will become apparent soon, he was a merchant seaman. So he would be away at sea for 6 months at a time and come home. My mum back then was just a full-time mum. Later on in my early life, my biological father left me. By this time, my mum and dad had separated. My mum had remarried to the guy we're called Dad now. Great fella. He was a prison officer. My mum joined the prison service along with him. And my biological father just took me and my brother home one day to the doorstep of my mum's house. He was going away to work on the oil rigs for 2 weeks and said he would see us then. And a couple of days later, my mum had to read quite a difficult letter to me at the age of around 8 that my biological father no longer wanted to see us anymore or have any contact with us at all, which was quite a tough pill to swallow being a child. Um, and we can go into that at some point, mate. I'm happy to speak about that. But from there, my stepdad, who became dad, brought me up along with my brother. Quite difficult at times having your mum and dad being prison officers in predominantly a rough area. So it's no secret that Salford is well known for gang violence and crime. My mum and dad did a great job at keeping me and my brother away from that. And I got into football really young. So growing up where I grew up, I don't know what it's like down where you live, but everyone kicks a ball, took to it quite well and was reasonably good at it at a young age. I was very fortunate to play for all my schoolboy teams, town teams, and subsequently played for professional football clubs, joining the academy at around 12. And that was great, mate. School for me was a bit difficult, so never had much concentration or desire to be good academically, but was always into fitness. And in year 9, I was taken out of school to go training at the football club. So at that point in my life, I thought I was going to be a professional footballer like lots of people do. Left school, did my apprenticeship at football, spent another year at the club, and then was what's known as released, and contract wasn't renewed, which was a big tough pill to swallow, because you grow up like everyone else thinking you're going to be some superhero and play in the Premier League and things like that. And do you know what, mate? I wasn't good enough. And later on in life, I had to realise that most people blame women or alcohol. I just wasn't good enough when I needed to be good enough. From there, I got into nightclub promoting with a guest that you've had on your podcast called Bradley Howard. He does the triathlon stuff now.
Great guy.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
guy. So we had some
Original
incredible
guy.
years. Yeah, Brad was such a charismatic, good-looking fella, and we had some great years running clubs in Manchester, working alongside him and another guy called Tom. And that was great, mate. Such a good experience to rub shoulders with people and meet new people. And we were just young kids, really, when we think about it, at 19 and 20, holding meetings with club owners and celebrities. And it was great, mate. But I knew it was never going to last. And at that time, then it was a natural transition to want to do something physical for a job. And that's what led me into the work I'm in today.
That's a great story. Yeah, I can see how the two of you combining, and I've looked at what you're doing and thought, as podcast host, that's pretty cool, because you can, as much as you've got the guest, you can also drip feed in your own experiences and your own thoughts and views, and to have like your backgrounds where it's very different, but there's clearly like a mutual respect between the two of you, and certain parts of your lives where you've just grown together through shared experience. So I think
I think we both have that experience of sort of the promise of being quite good at something, and you know, the doors and windows that potentially could open, and then the sort of harsh reality of those windows and opportunities closing, and then you've got to sort of pick yourself up and get on with something else. And I actually wondered, Dave, I've not asked you this before. Do you think that maybe, you know, because you've talked before about how your education changed because you were in football, and mine certainly did as well. Like I definitely wasn't putting as much effort into my schoolwork as I should have been, and consequently, I think that when I then finished sailing and ended up at university, like having to do a bit of graft, and sort of couldn't really ride on the coattails of, oh, don't worry, you're in the British sailing team, like you'll be all right. Just do the bare minimum to scoot through. Suddenly, it really mattered what I was doing with schoolwork. Like for me to continue with the degree that I was doing into later life with that job, I'd have to be in the top 5-10% of my degree course to even be considered to be taken on into marine biology I was doing. And I wasn't anywhere near that. And I wondered, I certainly feel like because I was doing sailing, I didn't prepare well enough for uni. I mean, I'm asking you, Dame, did you feel maybe when you left football that, you know, the schoolwork that you'd missed out on maybe didn't put you in the best position, or what?
Oh, definitely, mate. I think my problem is the schoolwork was sent to the football club, believe it or not. And I always remember this.
Right.
So the schoolwork was sent to the football club, and I'll never forget it. After the day's training, we would go into like one of the boardrooms, and it wasn't just me. There was a couple of lads who were doing it, and one of the managers at the time at the club, who played in the Premier League, scored a penalty at Old Trafford for Sheffield Wednesday. I remember him saying to us, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I need to do my work." And he said, "Why are you doing that? You're going to go on and be a professional footballer." So you get this false sense of potential around yourself that you're going to make it. And when it all came crashing down around me, God, I remember thinking I probably should have knuckled down a bit more, because when I came out of football, all my friends who had done like apprenticeships in joinery and, you know, plastering to be an electrician, they were starting to see the fruits of their labour now. Whereas I had nothing, no qualifications. And, you know, there's no other option there to start picking up the phone and ringing friends saying, can I do some labouring for you?
Yeah.
That's such a risk though, isn't it? Because if you'd done it the other way around, where you'd compromised with your football to put more effort into your schoolwork, you could have had that regret of, oh, if only I'd put everything into football.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you put everything you could have possibly put into football?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah. I don't regret any experiences I had through playing. A bit like Fish Head, I got to travel to California and play in California, San Diego, played Mexican teams, I've played German teams, Japanese, Italian. Great experiences that I never ever regret. And I did, I gave it 110%, but I think in my adult life and being a parent again now, sports such as football, it's densely populated, and the chance of becoming a professional footballer is very, very slim. Bradley Howard was a great footballer. I don't know if you mentioned on the podcast we used to play for Bolton, and you know, I was.
I think he's probably good at everything, and he just comes across as a lad that's kind of just one of those annoying lads that's just good at everything.
He is, yeah. Again, so I know he'd vouch me on this.
He's a good singer as well. He's on the X Factor, wasn't he?
Do you know what? He can't dance. So if you ever watches and listens to this, he can't dance. He's got no rhythm. To be fair to him, it's a good job he's good looking. Yeah.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable being on camera with him, and someone I work with had a joke and said, "You now know how most blokes feel when they're sat with you." And I was thinking, there's a compliment there somewhere, but it's. I thought, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think Fish Head made a good point there, Ollie, just before that. One of the beauties of me and Fish Head doing the podcast is because we come from such different backgrounds, around different people. Like Fish had mentioned in our very first episode we did, where we do want to tell our story of growing up. Where would we have met each other? And he's exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, the chances of me and Fish Head meeting each other is very, very slim. And we have. And I think what helps us on the podcast is we tap into two types of worlds. So I've got connections in my world, the football world, and people where I'm from. And equally, Fish Head's got his from the water sport world. And that became apparent to me when we did an episode with a fella called Adam Hardman, who'd rowed the Atlantic. And we went to his lovely house just on the Menai Strait one in Fish Head. And we sat and did a podcast with him. And I never thought I'd ever be able to sit down with someone who's done something like that, because water sports where I'm from just isn't a thing. And it was great to do that. And that's why it works for us, because we can tap into different sides of our lives, basically.
Yeah, fair play. And for me, I don't feel like I had that contact base when I started. Whereas now, 10 months later, 50 podcasts later,
yeah, congrats.
I feel like my network is huge, and I can tap into people from all walks of life, because my podcast isn't it's not theme specific. It's like specific to people that have overcome something, so that can apply to literally anything, can't it? It's for me.
Yeah.
And I get people sometimes ask if could I come on your podcast, and I have to be quite careful now and quite honest with myself in that the people that are in the middle of going through that thing aren't necessarily the people that are going to be suitable to the message that I want to portray, because I feel like that's the listener. The listener is the person that's sat in that darkness or sat going through the adversity, but the lessons come from the people that have like navigated through. So they've therefore got they give that hope then of, oh, well, if this person has got through what I'm going through now, then there might be something that this person says that just gives me that little bit of wisdom or a little bit of hope.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it really helps people, doesn't it, when they see, or it helps me. I've taken a lot from the guests that we've had on.
Massive.
You know, when you hear about someone's story when they've really been up against it. And this isn't diminishing people's lived experience, because you can feel as though you're deep in the shit, even though when you might not be in a war zone. But when you hear about someone that's had that experience through the the war zone, the PTSD, that, you know, the problems with family when they come back, and manage to get to the other side, and then turn that into a success and a success story and a job. It does give you the motivation to think, to actually take stock and think like, yeah, okay, life's not great at the moment, but, you know, look what these guys have achieved having come through that. It does give you that extra kick on and the motivation. You know, the Baggies lads, Daymo, as well. You know, you're 50 podcasts in now, Ollie, yeah. And I'm sure you know, Daymo did a post the other day about the things you didn't realize about podding. Like 90% of the graft is off the mic, you know, the organization, the traveling, you know,
never
trying to
need the
get people
toilet till
together.
it starts.
Yeah, don't need a piss until you sit down. All that, and you must understand the level of grind that's required with it. And I hadn't really sort of prepared myself for that. But we then interviewed these young lads running their own business, like literally getting feelers out into the fashion world. I think they might be dropping some big stuff pretty soon. And they just grind it out, mate. They're there 18, 19 hours a day in a freezing cold warehouse, just pumping it as hard as you can. I just thought, fucking hell, you know, that is, you don't need any more motivation than watching them doing that, you know?
No. Yes. I feel like I listen to a lot of podcasts as well. And as much as I'm growing as a person through the podcast that I'm part of and I'm hosting, I also feel strangely that with the podcast I'm listening to, whether it's subconsciously or not, I select the right podcast to give me that little bit of wisdom again that I need to hear. And there's something, I feel like there are unteachable lessons that you can hear these things and you can hear people on podcasts talk about certain things. But it's only when you're in that place, you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Like the grind of a podcast. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not overnight success. Even always the top podcasters in the world, a lot of them would have been pumping out episodes for 2-3 years, get to like 400 episodes, and then they have that breakthrough. Do you know what I mean? It's you've
Yeah,
got
I
to be
mean,
in
you've
it for
only
the
got to
long game.
look. You've only got to look at the ones that have started with people that already have a platform and some fame that just drop by the wayside. Like the amount of failed pods there are out there, that a couple of people that have already got backing, fans, you know, an Instagram profile, and they're flopping left, right, and center. So, you know, for the average Joe to pick one up and run with it, mate, you really are smashing it. Fair play to you. Well done.
Yeah,
No, thank you. Likewise, I can see. Yeah.
I mean, the level of grind
Not
to
to
get
see
to
there's a
50
similar mission.
episodes. I mean, I did the other day, Ollie, what most people do and jump on the old Chat GPT, and most podcasts don't even see past 20 episodes, and that's worldwide.
No,
That's
nowhere
not
near.
in the UK. And a bit like you, Ollie, I'm glad you've said it. I think some podcasts can be guilty of getting people on for clickbait, basically. Highly controversial political topics, and they're just clipping them into short form content, into TikTok reels that last 10 seconds to get clickbait. And I don't necessarily know if I'm on board with that all the time, because the beauty of podcasting for me is being able to sit in a room with someone, disconnect from life. And I've said this to Fish Head, I find when you're in your everyday life having conversation with friends, you're always liable for getting your phone out and checking something, and technology ruins the conversation. But I find when we do episodes with guests, is the phone gets put to the side, everything else gets put to the side, and for that hour or 2 hours or however long that podcast lasts, you really immerse yourself in that person's story, and it's real organic conversation again, which is what it must have been like before technology became a thing, and that's what I love about it.
Absolutely. So
And
how long did it take you boys to get from idea to getting together and really taking it seriously? Was there a period of procrastination, or was it
No, it
spontaneous?
was quite a while, wasn't it? Because we were talking about it for a while, because like we sit around a lot having conversations with people that we don't know and listening to what they've got to say. And, you know, Damien's got a bit of a secret weapon. Like he can somehow make people instantly relaxed and open up within about 25 minutes. I can leave someone with him and go to the toilet, come back, and that person is then saying, yeah, well, I'm actually on my third marriage now. You know, like my first marriage was probably the girl that I really loved. She was the kind of the one that got away. I'm like, whoa, mate, slow it down. Like you've just met this guy, but he can get people to open up and unfold. And I just really enjoyed sitting with him, bouncing off other people and having those sort of chats. And we have had some people, unfortunately, that weren't on the mic back in in the years that Damon's been dissecting people for breakfast, and they've had some incredible stories. And we started consuming a lot of pods, didn't we, Dame? And Damo just said, "Why we should be doing this? We've got the ability to talk to people here." And I was like, "No, I can't really be asked. What's the point?" And then he just turned up with like, "I've bought this." He bought a load of road equipment, and he'd been to the Mac store and bought a Mac, and was like, "Right, I've got a guest. We're doing Andy Williams, and we're doing it." And that was it. I was just like, "All right, yeah, let's go."
Again, just to add a bit more context on that from my point of view, Ollie, is listening to Fish Head's story, which is an incredible one in itself, from his surfing days to living in Trinidad and Tobago and everything like that, and St. Lucia. I would tell friends of ours, like, did you realise that Fish Head went to the Olympics, for instance, on the St. Lucian team as a coach? And they were like, no way, I can't believe that. And so to be able to deliver his story elsewhere and to tap into other people and see what they've got going on in their life, I just love doing that. Some of the best conversations I've had is round a table at 3 o'clock in the morning with a cup of coffee in a work environment. And some of these conversations have been of laughter and great stories and intrigue. But you know what, mate? Sometimes people have opened up about dark things in their life. It might be relationship breaking down, or mental health problems, or dealing with co-parenting children. And I've always loved just listening and speaking to people. So we manifested the idea of starting a podcast, which is called You Know What I Mean. And the name came literally from, we always say it to each other, people doing convo, don't they? They say, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just went online, had a look at what equipment I could buy, and I had it in a basket. You got me there?
We're back, I think.
Oh, I don't know what's happened there, mate. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so
just go from the basket.
Yeah, so I had the equipment.
It's just playing around a bit. It's just literally it's fiddling around. I reckon
Just give it a sec.
Give it a
I
sec.
might take a quick piss.
Yeah, likewise.
Let it fill there. Are we back? Yo. You got me there?
Yeah, we're back, I think.
Right. I don't know what
we both just dived off for a piss. I still got
right,
so
I'll wait
I
for him
can
to
see
come back, mate,
yeah, I can see the percentage on yours is going from like 0% to 70%, which is annoying because it was up fine up until a minute ago.
Yeah, so yours dropped then and went back up. Are you still able to hear me the same and everything, Ollie? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just playing.
How you getting on?
Let me know when you're ready.
You were telling us about you had stuff in your basket.
Yeah, is everything working at your end there, Ollie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I had the Rode microphones and everything in a basket, and just pressed buy, went in at the deep end and said to him, right, we're gonna do it. And a lot of people around us, kind of, probably rightly so at the start, kind of laughed at us and was like, go on, who do you think you are, Joe Rogan or James English? And that was us. We were just away from there, and I think we're only 3.5 months into our podcasting journey now, so we've got far less experience than you, but I've really enjoyed it. And one of the main things I've learned from doing the podcasting up to now is that when you're a startup podcast, you necessarily haven't got the access. You necessarily haven't got the access as a startup podcast to what you would class as high profile guests all the time, which is fine. But what that has done has enabled us to tap into the stories of just everyday heroes who really are the epitome of resilience, which is great. And I've said to Fishhead, within our own ambitions, no matter how big or how far we go with the podcasting, we will always have time to sit down with everyday people because they have some incredible stories. I'm sure you've met many people like that yourself.
Almost every person I've had on the podcast, really, or every single one of them, because I love the idea of no matter how much it hopefully grows, never losing touch of, like you said, those everyday stories from people that have just been through incredible things. Because for one, I live all the way down in South Devon, so I'm not in the thick of it. So for me, it's who can I tap into locally, because there is so much more value in sitting down face to face with people. But at the same time, I've had a lot of people on my podcast from up your way and beyond and London. And it's so much easier just to jump online because people have got busy lives. And especially I feel some guys I've travelled, and I had a lad travel down before I'd even launched the podcast, a guy that I'd only met through Instagram, through like the fundraising and stuff. He travelled down from Leeds all the way to my house.
Legend.
And what an effort that is. Yeah, what an absolute effort that is. And we sat down and I had technical issues again. And it almost messed up the recording. I really had to learn how to go into the back end of the recordings and play around with the different microphones and stuff. And I managed to rectify it. And I've kept in contact with the guy. But for me, it's no matter how much it might grow, having that balance of people that help the podcast to grow, but also have the right message. And not losing touch of people that you might be able to help, because I feel like certain people, even people I reach out to sometimes that I'd love to have on the podcast, if they're on their own mission of trying to reach the next level as well, then I feel like some people forget to leave that other hand like hanging down. It's like that for me is like the perfect balance. And I'll never forget the analogy one of my friends gave me is like, if we're all here to help each other on a ladder, it's like, as much as you might be trying to achieve something, don't lose sight of the people that are there that need your hand as well to help you.
Oh yeah, mate.
Yeah,
definitely.
it's a good message. That I like that.
I mean, to put the question back to you, Ollie, at what point did you decide you were going to get into podcasting, mate? And how did that look for you? Because we do this as a pair and you do it individually. So where did that come from? Was it a conversation around the table with a partner, or?
It was an accumulation of certain things. So I've made some big changes in my life after my 40th birthday. And I realised that I just wasn't happy. And that was nothing to do with any individual or anything that was going on in my life. I was just not doing it right. So I made the changes, and then I was having a coffee with a friend that had played quite a big part in those changes. He's a really cool spiritual mentor. He's smashing it worldwide, coaching wise. And I sat with him and I said, wouldn't it be cool if I could do something now with my background and how I've done the job that I've done, where I've had certain experiences, but also my upbringing in Brixham. I was never really someone that maybe was destined for the police. So I had like a different kind of childhood as well. And I feel like I can connect with people from all walks of life. I don't judge people. And I thought it'd be class to put all that together and do a podcast. And it was almost like a joke throwaway comment at that point. And I'll never forget, he just said, well, why don't you then? And I sat on it and I was thinking, I've got a garden room at the back of my house, which when I moved in to the house again, I looked at it and thought, that's a podcast studio. It's tucked away from the side of, like, at the back of the garden, purpose built. It was like clearly some kind of business room when I moved.
So what have you done then? Just knocked up a load of like egg boxes on the walls in there, or what?
Not much, mate, because again, lack of funding. As soon as, if I had the budget, you could make this like a top range podcast studio. It's an incredible little room. But hopefully that'll all come, because at the moment I'm sat on my iPhone in the room. I've not had that extra bit of cash injection to invest, which I know from many people I've spoken to that have made a success of what they're doing. They've had that mentality of like, no plan B, burn the boats. If you've got a plan B, you won't go with plan A.
Yeah.
And I know that that's holding me back. It's something that I'm guilty of, that safety, but no, I can't quite justify investing in that course or that bit of kit. And it does hold me back massively. But yeah, just to finish off like that question, because it's a good question. I became part of this like online community, which was run again by the same guy. And I joined that community with no real idea of what it was going to lead to. But what happened was, it's like one of these environments where there's like, share what you want. We're all here to support each other. And people were opening up about the wildest things and going really deep, becoming really emotional. And something happened to me on those calls where I just became drawn to putting my hand up, because it's like a Zoom call, and that the heartbeat's going, because you're like, my hand's up now. I can't back out. Whatever it is that is feeling like it wants to come out in this little online community, I'm just going to let it flow. And then the moment I did, stuff just came out, and the connections I made from that community, a lot of them have been on my podcast. A lot of them are now actually my friends that will meet and do certain stuff together. That showed me something inside that I didn't know was there, that I thought the only way to explore that further is to do it on a podcast.
Right.
And do you think by maybe opening up about some of your own vulnerabilities as well, Ollie, has helped you grow as a podcast host?
Mate, honestly, in that container, they call it community, because there's some deep characters in there, and I started opening up about a few things that were going on at the time, because it felt like life was happening to me at that point. Everything was stacking up, and I hadn't made the changes I needed to. So my work-life balance was out of sync. I was in poor health, but at the same time, I had like family members that were also in poor health. My gran had just been taken into a care home. My mum was becoming very ill because of the stress of that. My daughter had some eye infection. She was in hospital, and it felt like everything was stacking up. So for me to release that at the point where I needed to, and I was encouraged to go a little bit deeper, and I couldn't in this group. I was like, I can't. I'm done. And I had to just turn the mic, like, camera off, and have a little moment on my own, because I wasn't comfortable doing that on the camera. But what happened then? They call it like a vulnerability hangover, where something happens like the day after, where it's like purging, where you are literally shedding what you don't need. Yeah. And again, I've learned so much about this through the retreats I've been to and the breathwork sessions, and through my little side business now, running the contrast therapy of the cold water and the sauna. Again, I'm trying to provide as many different outlets and avenues for people to find that same level of experience, where you are healing stuff you've been through, especially the kind of occupations we've done, where it accumulates and it stacks up. And I call it, I've got this analogy of being trapped under a mound of rubble. You can't expect to clear it straight away, but once you break through the rubble and you start to see the light the other side, you know that it's your mission to remove all the rubble bit by bit, because life the other side is free and lighter and far more enjoyable.
I mean, people talk about like trigger stacking, don't they? And I've heard people, or seen people, and myself actually, turn my nose up at those sorts of labels and that, but it is a real thing, and it doesn't have to be heavyweight shit. You know, it is the small things all layered on top of each other that can create that feeling of like inescapable pressure, isn't it? And that's a good analogy, mate, to be able to sort of like just see that crack of light through the stack and work towards that. Yeah, nice. I like that.
Yeah, mate, there's always, that's the thing. We all know that there's something really deep within you to go to the extreme effort of starting a podcast, but then sustaining it. Because if it wasn't from that place, you would just give up. There would be no reason, because any dream of instant monetization or anything like that, or status or growth, it just doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me realize that people tend to look at anyone who's running something good, whether it's a pod, whether it's an Instagram account, whether it's a new business or whatever, and they're like, oh, look at them, you know, all they do is do a couple of posts and they're just getting paid for this and that. And like, nobody really has got an idea of the level of grind that you have to maintain to keep that sort of status. I mean, one of our guests, Chris Middleton, you know, he's doing pretty well on the socials. His socials are glowing up and all that sort of stuff. And he just came clean. He's like, look, guys, I'm on a paid holiday to Cyprus to get these pics and that. And the primary funder of all this is me. You know, I'm not
really
just
honest.
cruising on a wave of people just dishing me out for influencing. He said it's just absolutely nails grind. I mean, yeah, maybe when you punch through that glass ceiling and start to soar, then it might become a bit easier. But you know, I feel like those that have the longevity certainly and aren't just your I be for final boss geezers. I know he's trying to grind out on the DJing or whatever, but to use him as an example, like he's now got to hit the grind triply hard because he didn't have that. You know, he was a viral sensation, wasn't he? He didn't have that sort of like underpinning level of graft that's got him to that level, and I think people don't appreciate that level of graft.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to
I think
touch on
there's
something you said there, you do breath work and stuff. Yeah, you got like a mate of mine's running a thing up here in North Wales called the Man Hut, which is like a similar sort of thing where guys 35, 55 getting together and having those sort of chats that you're talking about there, where you go places that you probably wouldn't, even with your wife, let's say, because you don't want her to see maybe your vulnerabilities. So yeah, it's something I'd love to get involved with. We're trying to get him on to have a chat with us about it.
I feel it's so powerful and that's why it's important to not try and then portray you as somebody you're not, because I feel the power in your average lad that's sat over just looking like just every other lad, but you're happy to be vulnerable and you're happy to talk about spirituality and you're happy to talk about your feelings and how you've struggled at certain points. And that to me then is so missing. And I'm not saying there's no one else doing it, because there is, but there's a lot of people that want to open up, but they're not hearing it from the right people that can actually. Yeah, I feel again it's deep inside me. It's something that once something becomes greater than yourself, as corny as that might sound, it becomes. It's almost like you don't have a choice but to continue what you're doing, because you've seen the impact you can have. And it's I know that even in moments where I'm like, do I really want to do this? Is it worthwhile? I'm like, we'll just give it a month, because I know that within a month I'll be back to where I was with it. I was looking forward to this one today. I had that moment, which I haven't had for a while, because life's been getting in the way. Yeah. And I had a little break again, because I don't like doing a podcast if I'm not in the right headspace.
Yeah, fair one.
Yeah, I agree.
With that. Yeah, go on, Dave.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just on the grind of running a podcast. Like you've both rightly said, that the point of monetization is that ceiling's quite high, and it's not necessarily the reason we got into podcasting at all. And I think I can speak on behalf of you, Ollie, when it's not the reason you got into it either. And these days where it's difficult and you're connecting with guests and you're wondering where your next episode is going to come from and what that's going to look like. But these moments, or there has been for us on our journey, where you get that reason why you're doing it, that reinforcement why. And one of them came last night for me, with a guest we've just put a podcast out, who's a great fella who we know, a personal friend of ours, who's a wrestler, and he's been wrestling all his life, and he's going through a bit of a tough time in his own life at the minute. And to sit with him for 2 hours and talk about him moving to Canada and the bond he's built with his child over wrestling was great. And that escapism for him to just sit and talk to us, he was like, mate, I really enjoyed that. It's just helped me so much, that conversation at the minute. And just to add to that, he texted me last night saying a friend who he'd gone to the wrestling academy with in Canada 20 years ago has found his podcast and listened to it and reconnected with him. And he was like, mate, it was so great to speak to him. And that to me is worth more than sponsorship or money or anything. It's just connecting people with stories that are relatable and you can learn from. And that's the beauty of it.
just give me goosebumps, mate, to be honest, because it's you bang on. It's like I got nothing further to add to what you said, because it's so true. And there'll inevitably be people that will say, "Oh, they're full of shit. They want to make money, they want to do this, they want to do that." But for me, it's that again has helped me so much to. Well, I don't care. I know myself why I'm doing it, and it for me something that is so common between the 50 people I've spoke to is the people that have truly found peace with anything that's happened, have like done that work on themselves, and it all everything every time, it's all like inside that person. As soon as you can let go of the external stuff and look back in your life and hold on to resentment and hold on to certain things with attachment, it's just letting go of all of it. I wanted to ask you, how much of the conversations you've had play on your mind for the following days after the podcast? Because I find myself, I'm almost like I'm in so encapsulated in the conversation, it takes me 2 or 3 days to process the
Yeah,
conversation.
I'd agree with that. I think for me, it's probably a couple of days after when something pops in and you're like, do you know what? That actually was like a really poignant moment in the conversation, or a message, or whatever it is. And what I sometimes do then is I'll actually go back and listen to that pod just to see
so
if
do
I
I.
caught that right. And yeah, some of the messages that we've had from some of the guests, I've actually started to use them in my life like fairly regularly, and it's helped me be more present. It's helped me, this is going to sound like hashtag Lewis Hamilton here, like more grateful, like just I'm enjoying the small elements of my life more because of some of the things that people have said on the pods. And also it's encouraged me to sort of push myself a little bit more in certain areas and just approach things differently with a different kind of mindset. And yeah, it's quite freeing, because you can get very easily locked into believing that your life's a certain way and feels a certain way, and just maybe listening to other people's perspective can just make you just feel a little bit lighter every day, and then just enjoy things a little bit more. I mean, it's really helped me. I don't know about you, Damien. What do you think?
Oh God, mate, yeah. I think one of the more deeper conversations I've had, Ollie, was with Fish Head and his friends, and it was a conversation around a close friend of Fish Head's who unfortunately took his life a couple of years ago. And to sit in the room with Fish Head and 4 of his friends, one being the brother of Gaz who passed away, and one being the cousin. It was a difficult conversation to have, but it needed to be had around the fundraising they did and a charity row. And to come away from that conversation and see 4, 5 grown men offer up their vulnerabilities to the point where they're fighting back tears was empowering to know that if I ever feel like that I'm struggling, I know now I can go to these geezers, including Fish, and be honest with them. And that was I've listened to that episode back since, you know, and what a great episode it was for that purpose. For me, it's just, I don't know about you, Fishhead, but we did it at a sailing club, didn't we, in Wales? And you know, just the whole day, the experience, Ollie, of watching the ocean and the waves coming in and the bad weather. And there was a point in the podcast, and it sounds really cliche, but the bad weather broke, didn't it? And the sun just came through the cloud, didn't it? And I never met Gaz, but it was such a privilege to hear the good stories of Gaz, his charisma, the infectious personality he had on everyone. And it felt that day, in that moment, that I'd lived alongside this fella. And when I come away from it, it was such like a great experience for me to be there. And I don't know about you, Ollie, but it's a great privilege as well to be involved in these conversations for me and put that out there for people to listen to.
See, my favourite part, if I'm honest, of doing this podcast is those stories where someone comes on and tells a story about someone maybe they've lost, or something tragic that's happened, and then I feel like I'm then given the honour and the privilege of creating some kind of Instagram reel or angling the podcast, so it almost becomes like a tribute to that person.
Yeah.
And I'm very respectful in how I do it. I obviously check every time, and I'll ask that person if they're happy. Could they send me through some pictures or some clips that I can merge into those reels?
Yeah.
And man, it brings me to tears every time because it's so powerful. And I've had so many stories like that. I've had Jade Horton on, who lost both of her kids in a fire. I've had a friend.
Fucking
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
And I've had a lad on who lost his best friend to suicide. I've had a lad who lost his best friend, who was one of the aid workers over in Gaza when the 3 of the aid workers got blown up 2 or 3 years ago. And I've put together these reels, selected the music to go with it and the right message. And I regularly, I'll look back on them and I'm like, as sad as it is, it might trigger some people and some people might not want to see that stuff. But the messages I've had from not just the people that have been on the podcast, but like other people that knew those people.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, that is, if I could only do one thing with my podcast and each person I have had on could have a certain kind of story, it would be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
can
powerful.
completely relate. I can completely relate, mate. You know, for example, the episode we did for Gaz, I was able then to do the social media side of it with the pictures of him, and even the subtle touches, Ollie, for me, like the music you put behind an Instagram cover photo. We always like to connect with the guests and ask them if they've got a song that means anything to them.
Yeah.
And on this case, at Gaz's funeral, a song by the Foo Fighters, Hero, was played, and I put that behind the music and we put it out, and the messages we got back on the social media of people that had listened to it was great. So I completely agree with you. You're helping someone's memory live on and someone's story go further by it.
It's funny because it might sound like, but that's sad, and it's like you're putting something online that's going to bring someone that might watch it, they might become emotional and sad. Or I don't see it like that personally, because these are real lives and these are things that happened. So if people have got the choice to watch these things, but for me, it's an honor, isn't it? I put a lot of effort into it, and I feel like I'm getting better, and it's like the quality of the content that I produce. I don't post all the time, but the stuff I do post, I put my heart into it. I put everything I possibly can to make sure that, like you said, the music is the right fit and it's the right volume for the audio with the voice, and the angles are right and the pictures are at the right point in the video. And yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have a team doing all this kind of stuff for you, but at the same time,
I was actually just going to ask you that. So, like, we've got a little way that we work. Obviously, it's a bit easier for us because there's two of us on it. Like, with you being a one-man band, like, how are you getting that balance of like edit, running a social, you know, running a family, a bit, you know, doing your breathwork stuff? Sounds like you got your hands full there. How does that work for you?
So I've got a little system, and luckily Riverside, this app we're using here, it's got so many built-in AI features.
Right.
For example, I press AI magic clips, and it selects from each episode like the 10 to 15 best highlight reels, and it will just pump them in. Yeah, it'll pump them into clips, but then without having to watch each one, it'll put a title with it, so I can see what the message of that clip is. It will do all the camera angles. It does it all for you. It does the transcript is very easy. You can tidy up the audio. So ultimately, I've got it down so I can pretty much get an episode ready in about half an hour, and then I can get the short form ready in about half an hour. I use ChatGPT for the show notes from the transcript. I've got it down. Like I've got my Canva artwork ready to go. So I just literally delete the last person's picture, put the next one on, remove the background, pump a name. But I also use, so the magic clips that it creates, I'll choose my favorite one. And then more often than not, the title of that, my favorite magic clip, will be the title of the episode. Because it's just what I'm saying. That's the message that's behind the whole thing. And it's, I don't put too much thought into it. I just go with that first gut feeling, right, that's it, that's done, and just get it out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not good at that. Like, I think I maybe spend a bit too much time getting that like perfection thing, or as close to it as possible. Like the Row for Gaz episode is a good example, because we're in this like watchtower above a sailing club, and we're in North Wales, and we're basically in the middle of a storm. It was the first time we'd used the 4 mics with, was it 8 of us there? No, 6 of us there. So the sound wasn't too great, and then you've got the hail smacking on the side of the glass and all that. And I had to go through that and really do quite a lot of like tweaking and balancing. Now I'd be interested to know if running that through what you said there, using something like the Riverside, would give me that same balance, or whether I'd still have to go over it again. I'm not quite sure whether it'd do it in as much detail. What's your experience?
I think it's the best platform, but I've not used anything else. But I spent 6 months before I launched my podcast in a pod school community, which was run by two guys that own podcast agencies. I really landed on my feet, because at the point where I wanted to do the podcast, I'd had one walk and talk style conversation with someone that we recorded, with a football manager who had battled and come through leukemia, and he set this clothing brand which has got men's mental health, top guy. So we did this little walk and talk, and that was me just testing, am I barking up the wrong tree here? Got great feedback from the episode. I really enjoyed it. But I then used that, and I messaged this guy that had this podcast agency, and he said, you've landed on your feet, because me and a guy called James Burt, there's two of them, Alex Chisnell and James Burt, and they said, we've just launched Pod School. It's free. Come in, because we're going to use it for a period of 3 to 4 months just to test the water. And I basically got all this coaching for free, where they scrutinized that video, gave me all the advice, and then I attended like weekly Zoom calls and got all this content, did a 5-week course, and basically paid pennies for it, because they were just trying to get it going. And unfortunately, it didn't have the numbers that they had hoped for, I don't think. So they had to pull the plug on it, which meant that I got that exclusive coaching, which was as good as, because they're behind so many of the top podcasts. James Burt's now working with Derek Chisora and Jermaine Pennant on a podcast. And he's smashing it. So they're top level podcast mentors. So I feel like I have
listen, we might have to do a bit of data exchange on that one then, if you've got some contacts with these fellas. I'm like, I mean, we're getting to a stage where I'm feeling like we do need a bit of help and guidance, and I'm happy to pay for that as well. It doesn't have to be organic connection. If he's like, look mate, I'm a bit busy but I can do a bit for dough, we might be interested in a bit of that.
They've got a course, so they
still run it, right? Okay, so
they didn't stop doing everything that they were doing. They just stopped because I was in a school community, SKO,
right? Okay,
and because you have to pay quite a lot for that community, I don't feel like the numbers justified them continuing in that format. But they've still got this course, and the detail in there, it was like I was doing exercises like create my dream listener avatar, and then every time you're thinking about a guest, think less about what I want and more about who my avatar would want on the show, and things like creating 100 dream guests, and loads of legwork before you got started. But I look back on that stuff all the time, and it is like the foundations. But Riverside is what they recommended, and it has been brilliant.
Sounds well. I'll have to take a little look at it, see if I can smooth out our processes a little bit.
Yeah, it's about 20 quid a month, but as you can hear there, the time it's saving.
Yeah.
And especially if you got to the point where you're like, we haven't got the capacity anymore to continuously do these in-person podcasts. We're now broadening our contact group. We've got people all over the country that would be great guests, but we can't do it in person. So let's explore the online. Well, that's where Riverside would really work like this.
We're going to have to investigate it, Ollie, off the back of a podcast episode we did with Vinny Shawman. I don't know if you're aware of him. He's a hypnotherapist and mindset coach. He's fortunate enough to have been on Joe Rogan 5 times. So he's worked. Yeah, we did an episode with him, but off the back of the episode, we were asked if we wanted to do a follow-up episode with a fellow who's been into space, an astronaut, who's a billionaire from America. And when he rang me, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be online. So we're going to have to investigate doing it now. Yeah, I just want to touch on
listen,
something.
Ollie, you're my new Riverside mentor, mate. So
that's fine.
Your phone's going to be ringing off the hook, lad.